I need to start with a confession. For a long time, I used the same password. But before you judge me, quick show of hands. How many of you or someone you know did reuse a favorite password over and over again? Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. And it wasn't because we didn't know better. In the moment, I can hear myself saying, I will fix it later. It will take too much time right now. Or just, I don't want to think of a new one. So I made a trade. I saved a few minutes now by pushing the problem to later. Here is the thing. I learned a long time ago not to reuse a favorite password for everything. And that lesson, it's always ready to teach itself again. To the person who still uses the same password, to the person who tells himself, I will fix it later. And you know, the worst way to relearn that lesson isn't when your password gets compromised. It's when your wife's does. And that's exactly what happened. Her favorite password got compromised. Not in a dramatic movie hacker way. No hoodies, no green text scrolling down a screen. Just small, unsettling signs. Like a notification. Ping! From McDonald's. Apparently, my wife had spent almost $200 at McDonald's. Which raised an important question. When did she become that into Big Macs? And yeah, that's when the dominoes started to fall, because she had reused her favorite password for other things like her Amazon account and her credit card and her bank account. This suddenly wasn't a Big Mac problem anymore. It triggered a chain reaction. Now, it wasn't just annoying, it was disruptive. Our evenings disappeared, not because of one big crisis, because of 1,000 tiny ones. Calling Amazon, calling the bank, waiting on hold, verifying identities, freezing accounts and unfreezing accounts, and resetting passwords again. And at one point, she looked at me and said, "This is fucked up." And she was right. It was McDonald's at first, just $200, not the biggest deal. But what started to stack up was time. Time we had to invest to get back to normal. Evenings, weekends, mental energy, and stress that follows you around, even when nothing is wrong. You know, the irony of all of that drama, it's literally my profession. So, when I was about 8 years old, I found video games on computers. Of course, I was immediately hooked. Then later, with 15, I found out that instead of going to high school, I could apply for an apprenticeship to learn about computers, IT, and cybersecurity. Of course, I was in. Now, at 37, I've spent the last 22 years, 60% of my life, dealing with people's computer problems. It's the only thing I've done. I've helped companies lock things down after a virus outbreak, and I've built full-stack security programs for multi-billion-dollar companies. And I'm still the default IT help desk for my mom, dad, wife, and friends. And if I've learned one thing from all of this, it's this. We are all guilty of saving time now and dealing with things later. We just do not realize how expensive later can be. We skip the warm-up and pay with an injury. We buy cheap and pay twice. We say, I will remember, and then we forget. No matter how much of a password pro you are, no matter how much money you invest into security, oopsies, can happen to everyone at some point. Sometimes it's a mistake, sometimes it's an accident, and sometimes it's an external attack. The mistake isn't the problem. The problem is how we think about time. And this is where I want to zoom out a bit, because conversations about cybersecurity usually come from one of two extremes. On one side, we have hackers. Everything is terrifying, everything is broken, everyone is doomed. And then on the other side, we have corporate academic voices. Disconnected, abstract, PowerPoint heavy. Technically accurate, practically useless. So far removed from real life that none of it feels doable on a Tuesday night after a long day. And somewhere in the middle, normal people get forgotten. Normal people like my wife, like you, like me. And that's the part that really bothers me. Because when people finally come to me, it's almost always too late. They don't come asking, what are the 3 ways to be better at my cyber hygiene? No, they come asking, I got locked out of Instagram. How can I get my account back? And at that point, we're not talking about prevention anymore. We are talking about cleanup, damage control, trying to buy back time that's already been spent. You know, life is about family, people, memories, experiences. The last thing anyone wants to spend time on is coming up with a new password every time you sign up for a new service. I get it. And that's also why I cringe when I hear cybersecurity experts say, humans are the weakest link. I don't believe that. You aren't weak. You're tired, you're busy, and you're juggling a lot. Most of the time, you're just trying to make it through the day without adding one more thing to the list. You are not the problem, but your perception of time is. And after seeing this playing out thousands of times, what I've learned is this. The goal is not perfect security. Perfect security is a fantasy. The goal is to build as many hurdles as possible so no one ends up buying Big Macs with your credit card. There is a massive amount of measures we could discuss today. My goal is to simply give you a very small basic set of measures that removes most of the big risks. First, password managers. Passwords are hard, and they're even harder to come up with. So stop thinking passwords and start thinking password managers. People on average have about 70 to 80 passwords. I guarantee you, you do not realize how many passwords you actually have. Last time I've checked, I've had 423 just on my personal accounts. A password manager automatically generates and stores your password with one click. So you never have to think about it anymore. Second, multi-factor authentication. Like with your bank account. You have a PIN and you have a card. For someone to steal your money, they would need to steal both, your PIN and your card. The same applies for your digital accounts. You have a user, you have a password, and then you have your phone to verify that it's you. For someone to gain access to your accounts, they would need to get all of that. I understand, it seems like a complex process, especially if you never have it done before. Here's what surprises people. Setting this up takes about 90 seconds, a minute and a half. 90 seconds now can save you hours on the phone, days of cleanup, and sometimes years of fallout. That's a good trade, in my opinion. 1.5 minutes now for not losing weeks later. And third, backups. Because devices fail. I once had a phone. No warning, no drama. 1 minute it worked, and the next, it didn't. And I didn't have a backup. Years of work, photos, memories, gone. You have choices. You back up now or regret later. Unfortunately, but also fortunately, it's that simple. All of these measures takes minutes. Not hours, not days, minutes. So let me quickly show you a magic trick. Please get out your phone. Nothing disappears, I promise. So please take it out. Good, first row is ready. Back to, ready? Okay. Then open settings, and then go to general, and then scroll all the way down until you see something like reset or factory reset. Found it? Okay, click on it. No, I'm just joking. Look, but don't touch. One click, and everything on that device is gone. Photos, apps, access. That tightening feeling in your chest, that's fear in the form of awareness. That's you realizing how expensive later can be. The real loss of losing files and photos you can never get back. That's the time trade. So The real question isn't, does this take time? Of course it does. The real question is, when do you want to spend it? Minutes now, or pain, drama, cost, and loss later? And that's exactly why I'm standing here today. Because my goal is that your next whoopsie does not become an oh shit moment. The solution, trade time today and save days, weeks, years, and sometimes some tears. The best digital security strategy doesn't have to be complex. It just has to happen before later shows up. Fix the small things while they're still small, and that's it. Oh, and for the record, my wife wanted me to clarify that she hates McDonald's. Thank you, everyone.